Why did the Israeli military police enter an Israeli army base and round up and detain a bunch of soldiers? Was there espionage? Were they stealing weapons? Selling weapons? Did they start an insurgency? Was there an imminent threat? No. A prisoner made allegations in the past that they mistreated him. And based on that, they embarrassed the soldiers. They publicly labeled them. And these are soldiers who work with hardened terrorists. Does this make sense? Only if your priorities are completely broken. And your priority is to put on a show at the expense of your own soldiers, a show to appease the West. So you'll say, calm down, what's the big deal? If they're innocent, they'll be free. But it's not so simple. There are ramifications. Ramifications to the entire army. First of all, the morale of the soldiers. It's damaged. All soldiers. It damages their ability to be aggressive. It interferes with their confidence, their ability to gather intelligence, including intelligence on hostages. We're talking about Islamic terrorists, people who plan and want to die, to be martyrs. Some may hold life-saving information. I want my soldiers to have the option to be aggressive and confident. Next, the morale of the terrorists. Terrorists in detention. Terrorists on the battlefield. The terrorists of the future. Now, they all know they have rights. They have Israeli military police who will defend them, who will protect them. It tells these terrorists to just have a little patience. Prison won't be so bad. Wait for the inevitable hostage deal. Wait with fresh bread and hot showers. Now, if anyone remembers the US war on terror, and they have movies about this, the greatest fear of the terrorists and what the US used as a tool was a foreign rendition, was to be taken and handed over to Egypt or Jordan or another Arab country, knowing that there anything can happen and likely will. So morale is a big deal, and fear is a big deterrent. And we just handed it away, publicly. Now, timing-wise, we're at war. And what do I want when I'm at war? I want my enemies to be scared. I want psyops. I want psychological operations. Let them think they'll be tortured. Good. Let them think they'll be rendered to a bunch of angry Druzim, the Druze. Let them think their bodies will be wrapped in bacon. Let them think they'll be dumped into the sea like the US did with bin Laden. And if there are legal restrictions against it, don't do it, but let them think it. And what I don't want is politics in my military police. I don't want zombies, pro-BB zombies, or anti-BB zombies dictating how my war is run, and what is investigated and what isn't. Because when you pick and choose when and where and what laws you're going to enforce, that's called selective enforcement. And it turns your justice system into a fraud, into a joke. Just look at the United States with Trump. They decide what to investigate, what laws to enforce, and it's based on politics and ideology. And that brings us to our next topic, selective enforcement. How do we know that's a factor? Because months ago, the Israeli prosecutors said so. They said it. And now they're doing it. They started with the absurd case of theft of weapons off of dead bodies. Now with this prisoner abuse based on a terrorist who was answering a customer service satisfaction question, a survey. They called him and asked him how his experience was, how he liked the hotel. And what's next? They told us. Soldiers who said Shema Yisrael. Soldiers who said Tehillim. They said, not now, but we're coming after you in the future. Now all of this is under the guise of justice, as if terrorists fit into this system, and that's wrong. When there is a crime, you seek justice. You do an investigation, you have legal elements you have to prove, you look for intent, remorse. But for the terrorists, it's a different paradigm. It's a different system, it's a different world. They're outside of this system. Why? They want to die. They're jihadists. So if you threaten to kill them, they'll be thankful. That's why you deter terrorism. You scare them. You make them think twice beforehand. You make it so that their family and their village and everyone around them will suffer from their acts. Is it nice? No, it's not nice. We know this. But that's why terrorism has been around for so long. Because it takes a heavy-handed approach to deter it. Otherwise, it works. And if you're worried about transparency and morality as your number one goal, you can't do any of this. So Ariel, everything you say is very interesting, thanks. But it's not so outrageous, it's not so foreign to us. Terrorism has been around for a long time. The US waged its war on terror for years. Any American over 30 knows what I'm talking about. Any Israeli of any age should know what I'm talking about. But do they? So let's start with our Israeli leaders. What, they don't know about morale of soldiers? They don't know how to deter a terrorist? They don't know of the timing of an investigation in the middle of a war? Going in to arrest soldiers in a base? About selective enforcement? They know all of this. Of course they know this. So why do I have to hear from the Prime Minister and the President and the misguided army leaders talk nonstop about international law and a moral army and transparency? That's not how you fight a war, and that's certainly not how you fight terrorism. So why do they do it? Because our leaders are so beholden to the West, so afraid of how they will look before the West, so paralyzed from operating, that they have changed the definition of winning. They have moved winning from the battlefield to the public perception, to Western opinion. That is their ongoing obsession. That's how they define winning, and that's how they operate. And that's why the IDF has become a food bank, and a public relations firm, and a media production company. It's why we're proud to show off our restraint. An army that brags that it took 330 missiles and drones from Iran just to make a big hole in an airport runway. That brags that it took 220 missiles from the Houthis just to start a big fuel fire, a Lag BaOmer fire. And it's why the entire north is on fire, and we just keep making threats for 10 months. So what about the people? What about the Israelis? Didn't I just say that the Israelis recognize terror? And they understand at least some of these concepts that are not so complicated? Well, they do. Israelis get this. But the problem is that the Israeli population is being replaced. By whom, you ask? Arabs? Converts? Migrant workers? No, by these zombies. Brainless, regurgitating zombies. And they're obsessed with one idea. They're either pro-Bibi or anti-Bibi. They have no ability to think. They can't assess information, and they have no independent conclusions. Zombies. The US had the same issue with Trump, and still does. When the COVID vaccine came out, Americans didn't know whether they should take the vaccine or not, and they had to wait to decide what Trump said to decide if they're against it or for it. There's no thought process. Zombies. They think life is a sporting event. And they'll either blame Bibi for everything, including the weather, or they'll follow him all the way to defeat. And they're all over these zombies. They're chanting in the streets, they're on Twitter, and they're here on YouTube. Boring, simple zombies.